Correct.
Hello. 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 Check. Hello. 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 Check. Hello. Check. Hello. Hello. Check. Hello. 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 Check. Hello.
thank you for coming on a Friday evening. If you didn't like the slot, we'll blame it on other members who said they wanted a Friday evening slot, right? So we are now going to keep experimenting with different slots based on what we heard in the previous member satisfaction surveys. One of the slots was basically a weekday evening, and we figured we'll start with a Friday evening and see how it goes. What we did not plan for was the Chennai versus Mumbai match at 8 o'clock. It's okay, we'll tell you the score. So don't get up and walk away. We'll tell you the score. I'm locking the doors and Samina and I are going to stand up. We are rebranding. So all I think is they print new brochures. That's what I am thinking. And they print new marketing material. But don't listen to me. I'm very, very happy to invite Ram and Ramakrishnan, Ram for short. Ram, thank you for coming here today. He's going to talk to us about how do we manage organizational changes, what organizational changes are. Ram comes over with over 30 years of experience in the oil and gas industry in the Gulf and about 13 years of experience in management consulting. He currently runs a consulting firm which has a pan-India presence. He's an avid photographer, he's a chartered accountant, and the reason, and the first time I met him as an author. And he was presenting about his book, which is called Grand Rajini, right? And I was telling him, please talk about it. And he said, I'll come here and talk about organizational changes. If you call me again, I'll talk about Rajinikanth, right? So if you all clap and welcome him, maybe he'll say, thank you again for coming.
Before I begin, let me introduce my co-author here. He's the main author, in fact, PC Basketball. Am I audible? Okay. A very good evening to all of you. It's indeed a great pleasure, wonderful opportunity, an honor to present in front of an elite group of professionals of the PMI Chennai. Good evening to all the guests, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a hot summer evening, and you plan your weekend ahead, spend time for yourself, with your family and friends, perhaps ponder over the kind of change you probably are expecting to have at the national level. You wrap up your weekend, get into your Monday morning blues, you hit office, when change notifications hit like a jolt from the You get a notification saying that here's your new organization structure and your new reporting relationship, which begins with effect from 1st May. It could be a change to your current compensation policy, with changes to that also happening on 1st May. You're already screaming Mayday, Mayday, when the quality department announces that you are bidding for a prospective tender in Timbuktu and you need to get certified in some new standard, and you have a 3-month bandwidth to get it certified. On top of all this, a bunch of consultants have walked into your office and they said, they come here to change your processes, to look at its efficiency, effectiveness, and perhaps some improvements. Or, with the advent of social, cloud, mobile computing, you've got a new technology initiative coming out from your company. Do you think this is all bad news? Yes? Yes, no, no, yes. Well, let me give you more bad news. So you walked into your office and you know that your leadership or your senior manager meeting is in progress and you're summoned. And you start wondering, everything is hunky-dory, where they're going to be. And they tell you, with grim faces around, that you have been selected to go and clean up a function in the company which is not working. Or you've been asked to absorb an existing division into your portfolio. Or perhaps take charge of a messy project with even a tougher client. Or maybe your company is going to spearhead a new merger. Or, wonderfully, you've been selected as the change champion of the company to take over and manage a new corporate-wide transformation initiative. Friends, I think we will be living in a fool's world if you think that none of this is going to happen. Because can happen at the same time. Because change is a way of what life is. But the challenge is to get it right. Now, how do we get this right? That's the whole presentation today. In fact, it's a great challenge for me because I have to pack up all the items of managing organizational change within an hour and 15 minutes. Let me do a good try. So let's see what happens in the process where you receive this kind of organizational change notifications. First and foremost, you will go through a process of transition. John Fisher explained wonderfully that you will go through a change cycle, very similar to economic cycles and business cycles. And this is very standard in an organization. You may go through anxiety, fear, guilt, depression, and slowly you will start gradually accepting that this is your new way of life till you reach a stage where it becomes an integral part of your day-to-day operations. Let's look at this a little bit more closely. There's something called happiness there. So that's happiness at others. Just imagine that compensation policy announcement. You have your colleague coming from next door and telling you, "Did you read that?" And you said, "Yeah, I read it." It's looking bad. And he says, "But please go and see section 2.1.11Z. It applies to your grades and above." You may go through a reorganization and at the coffee counter somebody will come and tell you, "Don't worry buddy, we went through all this last 2 months, we just come out of it, welcome to the club." Happiness at others is a very standard transition. People go through guilt. I've seen a number of people who announce changes, who announce organizational changes across the company, and they hide away from others. And you go and confront them taking some guts, and they tell you, "Well, under the circumstances, we thought this is the best for the organization," which is a standard reply. Worse are people who deny what change is this all about. We've gone through all this. We've grown from year after year. We've made profits. What is this new change coming about? Why are they doing this? People can get disillusioned, saying that this is not enough for me. This is not any more necessary for me. I'm just leaving. And worse, there are people who become hostile. They will tell you that, "Come what may, I will ensure that this change doesn't take place in the organization." But the fact remains that you will go through the change cycle. And the essence of organizational change is to find out, if you draw a horizontal line there, and that's the timeline, the essence of change is to ensure that the fall is not too steep, and that you're able to bring forward the people's gradual acceptance of the change, and that it becomes an integral part of your working life. That is the essence of change. So that probably will ask you a question: are we the current generation which is facing all this nonsense? Were the previous guys living in a world of great stability? Are they pretty much having only kind of location transfers where you as kids went from one location to another, adapted a new way of life, new language, new friends? No. History tells you that change has been constant for a long period of time. I'll draw 2 quotes here. I hate to put long paragraphs in slides, but these are 2 very important quotes, which tells you that change has been there for a long period of time in history. It's been recorded. Here's the first view from a perspective of the person who's being asked to adopt the change, the new order of things. I'll read it out for you. "We trained very hard, but it seemed that every time we were beginning to form up into teams, we'd be reorganized. I was to learn later in life that we tended to react to any new situation by reorganizing, and a wonderful method it can be for creating the illusion of progress while producing confusion, inefficiency, and demoralization." That has been the comment from a person who's been asked to adopt change long ago, AD 66, Roman general Petronus. Let's look at it from the point of view of the guy who's been asked to lead a transformation exercise. Here is another long quote. I'll read it again. "It ought to be remembered that there is nothing more difficult to take in hand, more perilous to conduct, more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of the new order of things." He tells you why. He tells you because the reformer has enemies in all those who have done well under the old condition, and lukewarm defenders in those who may well do well under the new. But here is the catch. This difficulty also arises partly from the fear of the opponents and partly from the incredulity of men who do not readily believe that new things until they have had a real experience with them. What he is saying is that many people think that let the change happen, let us experience it, then we will tell you whether it is good or bad. And the enemies for the reformer comes from the people who are stuck to the old. So change has been constant in history. They've repeatedly told you that adapting change or reforming and putting a new order of things in place has always been difficult, and never success is assured. So, what do? How do we manage organizational change? So, we need to have some kind of approach. The moment we talk about approach, immediately people start thinking there are change management models, there are good methodologies, there are tools, there are techniques, there are standards and best practices to adopt. The good news is that every single methodology, tool, model you will read and pick up from the internet are very good. But the bad news is that you got to adapt it for your organization. Because your organization is selling a unique product or a unique service, and that is done by a unique set of people who have got a unique set of skills, who've developed a unique set of culture. And the organization culture has to be viewed upfront, and the methodology has to be tweaked to that organization. So whatever methodology you want to adopt, the first and foremost thing is to look at your organization's state of affairs in terms of culture, and then think of whether that methodology will be applicable. Yet, we need some basis. We can't make a ivory tower statement and walk away saying that there is no need for having a methodology. Let's go to the brass tacks. Feet on the street and find out what exactly should be this change. How do we manage this change? So, a change is started. You started the thought process that you want to establish a new way of doing business. The change actually begins into live action when it gets into an operating mode. So there is a process of creation, collaboration, integration, demonstration, and communication of what you want to do, and take it to a point where change is ready for action. If you look at this piece, the bulk of the work for managing change happens between the start in which you thought about the change process till the time you put it on live action mode. If you look at that, you will see the connect, especially you all. You will find that you're doing a unique set of activities to achieve a unique set of results. That is not your day-to-day business. That is not delivering a service. That is not manufacturing a product. That's not building a pipeline. That's not collecting money from your customers. It is something unique, which is expected to have certain unique results. You have a definite start and end. The start being the thought, the end being the live action. You can't think of a change tonight and go and plonk it tomorrow. No way it can happen. You've got to progressively elaborate. You've got to go through the process of dicing and splicing. You've got to analyze, get paralyzed, and then begin live action. And last but not the least, whatever you want to bring into the organization should have lasting. Now, I'm sure project management people can see the connect. The connect is, you've got to manage change like a project. I'll give you an example. You have 3 managers doing their day-to-day business, and you tell them, hey, we want to look at the process. You boys get into a initiative of changing the processes. And what would be his commitment? Would it be priority that he will look at the change process, or would it be priority that he would do his day-to-day business? So the problem is that if you decide that that's the only way, because you don't have resources, you don't have the skills, and these guys are the only guys to do it, apart from what they're doing as day-to-day business, then lower down your expectations, because the lasting impact will get diluted or it will get delayed. So, a basic foundation for managing change is to look at it as a project, as a unique set of activities distinct from normal operations. And therefore, you have to do everything which you know about project management. I don't know how to teach you all project management. Obviously, you have to run through the process of planning, executing, monitoring, and closing. You will have all kind of components of the project management there. But here is the icing in the cake. It doesn't end. There are three difficult areas which sits on top of project management. First, you got to manage a series of incessant crises. I meant incessant crisis, meaning that crisis will be successive, coming one after the other before you even think that the change is ready for implementation. It can hit you from anywhere. It can come in very different forms. It can come at any time. You might have progressively elaborated and got ready the change to be implemented. They can take you back in time. Crisis can happen. And it is incessant. It comes in varied forms. It comes in different series and versions. And you got to get things done by people who are actually not in your control. So let's take an example again. You've been asked to go and clean up a function. You walk into that office and you tell that manager that you've been instructed to take a look at your processes. What would be his reaction? His reaction would be that, let us give you all our documentation, let's give you our standards, let's give you our job descriptions, let's give you our current organization structure, you take a look at it and come back. But what you wanted to do is collaborate with him and find out ways and means of improvement. You can't get things done from people because they're not in your control. So typically, most change projects have to have elements of project management. On top of it, you've got to manage the series of incessant crises, and you've got to get things done from people who are not in your control. So therefore, we need to look at why this happens. Most organizations which have looked at transformation initiatives, they've surveyed and said they have failed, or they have been delayed, or they have been died. Why does this happen? Fundamentally, 80% of the problem is the resistance to change. It's not people resist to change. People resist changing. Nobody wants to change. There is no executive commitment coming from the top management or line management. There are no change champions. Remember the guy who's been asked by the senior leadership meeting to come in and given the task of engaging himself in a corporate-wide transformation exercise? The first reaction would be, sir, no, please tell my boss and I will support. Because they are scared to take over the role of a change champion, sweepingly do transformation exercise across the company. There are unrealistic expectations of what the changes, what the benefits are. Change cannot be done by one guy. Just think about it. You want to change the procurement function. Do you think procurement alone can change the process? Of course not. You got to involve supply chain management. You got to involve vendor. You got to involve contract administration. You got to involve legal. You got to involve finance, accounting, warehouse management, the whole works to change the procurement process of the company. No one single function can change processes as organizations have become larger. And lack of skills. So the simple solution for lack of skills is they call in a consultant. So why does this resistance to change happen? There are several reasons. I will pick on a few reasons here. Of course, we all know the strong connect to the old way, the fear of the unknown. But there is low trust amongst the people who are initiating the new order of things. People think that they are coming in disguise to do something else. They don't think that they are coming to really benefit the organization. They have no trust on people who want to inculcate change. They think it's a temporary fad. Oh, 4 years back it was BPM, 3 years back it was BPR, yesterday it was CMMI, today you are saying so boom. So they all think that every time a change is introduced, it's another fad. And compliance is not acceptance. Some people think that you give instructions to change, people start, yes, we will do it. They start working on compliance. That's not acceptance. and you will see that the change has fallen flat in the first 15 days of implementation. And last but not the least, every time you say, let's improve, let's change, people immediately start working. Why should I do all this when I'm not getting additional rewards and benefits? So therefore, if you want to adopt a management of an organizational change process, not only project management is required, you've got to add up crisis management and people management. And you've got to tweak that methodology to your organization. And that is how you will be able to lay a basic foundation of managing change. That's all about the theory I have. Let's see how organizations burn out, get on fire because of the structural change proposed to the organization. Here's a live example. I'm not going to give you any more theory. These are all examples of organizations which went through chaos. The first, I'm going to take up a case of a structural change. We're not getting to the details of the company, it's not necessary. Which industry they're in, who are the players, what's the name of the company, where do they do it, that's not relevant for tonight. But basically, here's the organization. There was a holding company, there were 3 subsidiaries. The 3 subsidiaries were operating units doing value chain in the same industry. So different parts of the value chain was handled by the subsidiaries with corporate offices heading at the holding company. They also had decentralized support, which means that your HR, finance, accounting, procurement, contracting, administration, quality, inspection, maintenance, everything was at the subsidiary level. So they were all operating independently. So the board decided it's time that they consolidate, become a major player in the market. Do not allow competition to come in. Let the competition get scared of us. They wanted to be a leading player in the geography, and they decided to consolidate, create a unified organization structure. Obviously, they needed to eliminate all the duplication which is existing in the support functions across the units. Okay? So what did the board do? They could have given the task to the company's line management, but instead they chose to award it to an international consulting firm. 2 things probably were the reasons why they awarded it to an international consulting firm. One, they probably thought that the executive management would not have the time, and therefore it will not get the commitment. This was really necessary at that time. And 2, they were doubtful whether it will be objective, whether there will be an element of bias in the organization structure which is being proposed. And 3, obviously they wanted to avoid turf wars, who's better than the other. So they decided to award it to an international consulting firm. So the request of proposal, they wanted a scope which had a unified structure, and they wanted an implementation to be ready in 4 months. So let's see what happened. Unassumingly, they introduced a clause in the request for proposal. And they said, if the consultants think that there are supplementary items that will facilitate implementation of the organization structure, they can propose this at an additional price. So when the bids came back, the board had different options. One option was to look at the structure and also get the job descriptions for the new positions. 2, they could get the structure, the job descriptions, as well as the policies, because each of the subsidiary units were having their own policies, and they wanted to consolidate the policies. 3, they could add up the appraisal system, because you had new jobs with new performance metrics, with new responsibilities, and therefore they could have to have a different look at the appraisal system. They could get a new performance reporting also in place. So what did they do? Here's what they did. In the final scope, they added the structure, they wanted the job descriptions, they had the policies, they wanted the appraisal system, and they put a spin. They told the consultants, please also tell us the nominees for the positions in the unified organization structure, so that they would get an objective evaluation. Here's what happened. So the players are the consultant, the company, and the board. What happened? As soon as the consultant plonked the draft design of the organization, there was a conflict. The conflict was because the consultant said this is the ideal organization structure, and the line management said this is not practical. Simple as that. And the conflict arose. The conflict never gets settled. It was assumed by the board that the consultants would work with the organization and come back to them jointly. They might have a dispute, but the board will settle that, and all of them will come to an agreement on the unified organization structure. But that didn't happen. What the consultants did, as time was running out, they said, who's our client here? Our client is not the executive management. Our client is the board. So they went and formed the structure and the policies to the board directly overlooking the line management. More conflicts arose. What the holding and the subsidiary line management did, they independently went to the board and said, here's our way of doing the structure, here is our opinion on what the consultants did. The board took that, and they also asked the consultants, get me the nominees for positions, because they wanted to close this whole problem. Now the chaos began. We saw a burning fire, and I started the organization chaos. Here's where the chaos is. So management claimed that the consultants ignored their feedback. They worked in isolation. Consultants claimed executives were not giving their full commitment. They were delaying stuff. Slowly, the entire organization of 10,000 people started getting news that there is a huge problem going on between our line management, the consultants, and the board. The first disaster happened when the CEO and the 3 direct reports got disillusioned by this whole exercise, and they resigned from the company on the same day. They said, enough is enough, we're not going to be any more part of this. And they resigned. A lot more things happened. Line managers who assumed that they will be not nominated into the new positions also quit. Policies got leaked. You know what the managers did? They bribed the office boy and told him that every photocopy you bring from the consultant's room, I'll give you $10. The policies got leaked, and they found that substantial end-of-service benefits were being changed in the new policy. So people didn't want to lose it. So a lot of people who had put fantastic experience in the company for 10 years quit because they wanted to collect their 1 year's salary which they got in addition. As this was happening, the organization structure went into the back burner. The whole company came to a standstill. Now they try to repair this. Coincidentally, some of the directors retired, got rotated, got replaced. The new chairman was elected by the board. What they did, the first thing the chairman came in and said, cancel the consultant's contract. It's the cause of all the trouble. Board appointed a new CEO and asked him to appoint his deputies and get it all done in 1 month. They appointed an internal reorganization committee. They got back to what should have been done in the first place. They did an internal reorganization committee, and they said, draft the organization structure. As that started, more managers quit. Employees were obviously terminated as the unified structure came into place. People were put on a redeployment list, i.e. giving them a chance to get a job. New set of policies were complied, and people are told, follow this or out. And this chaos continued for 18 months. The whole organization structure changed very fast. So, you know what the model was? The famous model: freeze, unfreeze, refreeze. This is the change management model which was in vogue. Freeze the structure. Unfreeze, allow the people in the new structure to tweak it. Refreeze, get the structure back. That was the model. Model didn't work. So it's very, very clear that organization structure is battlefield area when you want to change the organization structure of a company. It's battle arena. Why? People don't allow another to invade this territory. Can you have the guts to walk into another department and ask them, how are you running your processes? I'm going to take a good look at it. Look, it's on the door. History has told us that all battles were fought because of territory problems. Why are turf wars happening in organizations? Why is production fighting with engineering? Why is engineering fighting with projects? Why is procurement fighting with finance? Why is HR fighting with finance? It is all because of territory. And it is impossible even to make a comment in a meeting about another department. Leave alone going and finding out how you're structured and whether you need to tweak in your structure. Forget it. Battle ahead. Because structural organization change is touching the human side. You are talking a lot about managing human side. Worse, there are professional egos at stake, and even worse, personal egos at stake. So you got to manage this. So what are the missing elements in this? First and foremost is the trust and transparency. Look, the executive management were men of competence, men of integrity. They built that company to that state. And you go and tell them that, look, you may not be objective in the unified organization structure. You can't go and tell an important professional manager that you may not be objective. That is the business prior to what happened. So let me take you through that. First of all, the supply chain consulting company was a high-end niche consulting business. It had a small team of people who were high caliber, high experienced professionals, small team. They largely performed high value jobs, maybe low in volume. Many of their jobs were outcome based, meaning if the supply chain improves, they get paid. They largely focused on US, Europe markets. Most of their customers already had a lot of technology in terms of ERP and all that, because otherwise supply chain design couldn't be done. Their focus was on designing the supply chain from where they were to take it where they should be. And because they operated in different industries like healthcare, retail, manufacturing, oil and gas, they had industry experts working with them. On the other hand, the other half of the company was an ERP consultant. And in this company, it is based on processes. It was a process-based consulting. It had a large team with hands-on experience in implementation. Many of the projects were low value because they attacked even small-scale industries. They attacked promoter-driven organizations. They attacked ancillary suppliers to enable them to have an ERP system. Their markets were in Middle East, India, and APAC. Most of their customers were raw. They didn't even know what technology could do for them. They were largely implementation focused, which means that they would handhold the customer till we take them through the whole process of getting ERP in place. And many of their consultants were learners from ground up, i.e., they were already experienced in industry. They lured them to consulting, telling that you've done it in one organization, I'll give you the opportunity to do it in many organizations. And thereby you can become a professional consultant. So what happened? The issue for the company was about strategy. How do they go to market? What is the differentiation? Can they go and say we are doing this and we are also doing this? What is the focus of their service? Above all, what's the value proposition they're going to bring in front of customers? That was the issue for the CEO. So what did he do? He went through a methodology. And the methodology was, he created a sense of urgency, and he called in all the executive leaders and told them, interact and come back to me for how we should shift our strategy to focus service. The interactions happened. Obviously, they didn't need each to because the set of people itself was and intense debates were held between the executive leaders of the company. And finally, they came to a conclusion that they will do supply chain consulting. And the CEO directed that the firm makes a quick transition. What is the likelihood of success or failure of major strategy shift? In organization structure, it is psychology. In terms of strategy, you can change strategy. Your competitive positioning, your market forces, your geography, your market customer profiles can enable you to decide that you need to change strategy. But you have to implement that shift in your organization. And that is dependent on your structure, on your process, on your people, the skills of the people, the culture of the organization, the shared values of the organization, and their competence. All of this sing and dance together. Until all of this is in synchronization, you cannot implement a strategy shift. And that's been clearly articulated by the pundits. So here what's happened? First of all, as I said, there has to be alignment of all these elements, and all these elements have to be tuned to the fact that this is a major strategy shift in the organization. You've got to have critical mass. Entire crowd should think that this new strategy is going to benefit the organization. There has to be capability, capacity, and readiness to change. You've got to encourage learning for people to attack and deliver that strategy in the market. And the mindset of the people should be good enough that they will adapt a way in delivering their business. What happened here? One half of the company claimed vociferously that ERP is not dead. There is huge market potential still for ERP. There is no need to stop this business. Let's work in tandem with it. The people in the ERP consultants were actually heroes. They established that company coming from an industry. Only 5% decided that they are capable of moving up. 10% gradually accepted, but the rest were disillusioned or hostile. They left. Unfortunately, after all they left, 2 years later, the company decides to build the ERP consulting office. Now here, Scotter's method. The CEO thought John Cotter's change management methodology is fantastic to adopt. Create a sense of urgency. Have a vision. Get into executive action mode. Transition. Have small wins. And get the new change in place. Cotter's strategy. Well-written book. But didn't work in this organization. So, can you see the contrast between introducing a structural change in a company and making a strategic shift? In both, the elements are required. The elements of trust, transparency, objectivity, demonstration, capability, blah, blah, blah. All those items are required. But structure is more on the human side. Strategy is about alignment. You need to ensure that everything is singing and dancing together. That essentially distinguishes an organizational structural change and an organizational strategy change. I will move on to the third case. The third case is probably the final case, and that's information technology in business. I will get into a little bit more specifics here. I will use the term we because I was an integral part of that project team right from day one. So I will use the term we so that you understand that I was there. Been there, gone through that mess, and done that. The scenario is that it is an oil and gas industry. There were onshore, offshore, natural gas liquids or NGL plants. There were two ports, a crude oil port and an LNG port, liquefied natural gas port. And around the port were two industrial cities. And most of these units came from erstwhile technical arrangements with international oil majors. So most of these companies left their legacy systems there, whether it was procurement, whether it was maintenance, production, process control, instrumentation, the whole engineering capital projects procedures, the whole works, whether it was a process, whether it was an IT system, they left it behind and had a technical service. There were no common processes across these divisions. Therefore, because of the legacy systems and no common processes, we have a lot of information islands, which means that onshore data is onshores, offshore data is offshores. Onshore maintenance will not talk to offshore maintenance. Very, very information-centric islands. There were a number of functions which were decentralized in one division, centralized in another division. Example, procurement was centralized across the company. Contracting was decentralized across. You know why? Managers like to have contracts under their control. There are $1 million contracts going on. They allowed procurement of materials to go, but not procurement of services. So the decision point was reached because the technical services agreement was getting lapsed and the systems were ending into their end of life cycle, and the technical service companies were already telling us, look, we have changed, we got any more support. So the company had to reach a decision point whether to replace the legacy systems or have one corporate ERP. So they engaged a small team of professionals in the company to prepare a feasibility study, and that's what most companies do. I had the fortune of working with some very, very competent, brilliant, bright, a lot of experienced professionals in this. And we debated this. And the first thing we did was we called up the senior most people of the company and we asked them the questions, are you ready for ERP? The first thing which will happen in an ERP system is to let them know that change can happen from incremental to radical in the organization process, because you're not anymore looking at verticals. You're looking at the process as a horizontal, which will cut across the organization, which will start from the input of the raw material to the value-added activities till an output is reached, horizontally, cutting across departments. And there has to be high integration between departments. Probably there are processes in that company which will cut across about 20 departments. Are you ready for this? That was the first question we proposed to senior management. And he said, if you're not ready for this, forget it. ERP is not going to work. We started the second one saying that because the processes are going to be horizontal now, they will be role realigned. The roles will get changed. And therefore, there might be redundancies. So, are you ready for structural change? And if this doesn't work, ERP will fail. The third thing we wanted to ask them is, hey, we can come and put in the same processes you have. Or you can implement best practices. Or you can add up some of the processes which are already embedded in the ERP, and that's what their sales pitches. Our ERP is best practice. Our ERP has industry solutions. And worse, the processes will become transparent. So, payroll can be done in HR itself. It will not go to account. It's not necessary that it has to be done in account. Payroll can be done in HR itself. So that's where the data is. That's where the data is entered. So, transparent processes, single data. Are you ready for this? And last but not the least, we asked the senior management, what is your commitment to this? What if you backfire? What if you become our beloved, your watchdog? What will be your department manager's commitment to this? Will they be committed? And what will be the employee buy-in? Because all of this in tandem will decide whether you want to go the ERP route or make it simple. Throw your legacy systems and get another system in place. That's the question we asked the senior management. And we thought, in all probability, the organization's senior management is going to come back and say, forget it, ERP is not required. We'll go and upgrade our legacy systems. But I think we gave them a point to counter. And the point was, what is more important? Is it their function or is it the organization? And surprise, surprise, we got an affirmative on all these proposed changes and the readiness from senior management. And they said, let's go. So we established a framework in asking senior management upfront whether you are ready for this change. And because it's going to hit the processes. We didn't stop there. Now, you gave us a signal. Now, what is the path? What is the path we need to take to implement process changes in the company? The first thing we said is, steering committee should comprise of all the senior directors of the company. And they have implementation responsibility. you need guts to go and say this to top management. Because top management will say, hey, then what is the need for the project team? We will be your advisors. We will be your bloodhounds, watchdogs. We will oversee what you are doing. No. We want the steering committee to take executive responsibility for the implementation of this project. Project team was only the facilitator. Project team was only a catalyst to bring the change. A lot of difficulty, they accepted that they will take the implementation responsibility. We told, take the reward and benefit, but you have to take the ultimate fall and responsible on your shoulders. The second thing which came up was, so we do this internally, or we just call some consultant and say, hey, you all know the experts, come in and implement an ERP system for us. There were pros and cons. The internal project means we know what needs to be done for the organization. Most of us spend considerable time. And whatever we do, whatever we learn, whatever we pick up will stay in the organization. Whereas the consultants will maximum do it and leave their knowledge for our cupboards. So, the question we asked is, do we do it as an internal project or do we get consultants and completely outsource this? And our recommendation was, for this organization, you got to do an internal project. The second thing was, how is this project going to be? So typically, an ERP system is a technology system. So they say give it to IT department. And with my due respects to IT department, this particular ERP cannot be done in the SDLC route. You can't go and do requirements, get back requirements, then design, show them the design, come back. You can't do that. Because this is about business process change which cuts across the entire company. And therefore, we said this is a business project to be led by business. IT will facilitate this project. So, if it is a business project, then what will be the composition of the business project team? Would people come out of their jobs? Would they take the load away from their line and come into this project? What would happen to them after 18 months? Would you take them back? Would you take them into the same role again? Or would you replace them and tell them go to hell? So, what is your commitment to these people who are going to sacrifice their line job and come into a project then? So, we have to carve out a strategy for the business project team members to ultimately go back to the departments and assume new roles. Well, if processes get changed, I told you already, structure will get realigned. Roles will change. People will become redundant. So what's the message to the company? Temporary fab. People will say, hey, these guys are implementing this ERP so that they will do all this redundancy. They are doing this ERP so that jobs will get cut. That's the message people will take into. And that is what will bring in the resistance. So we said upfront you need to announce, and that was the HR director. Upfront you need to announce that this is not about cost cutting. This is not about employee terminations. In fact, you might end up with upgrading the level of your employees because they have attained new skills. ERP is a big elephant. And people will say, let's chew it a little bit. So, again, a big intensive discussion was taken to carve out whether we do this big bang, as they say, bring the whole works together, or start slowly and get small ones. If you read most of the SDLs or ERP methodologies, they say get small wins first. Well, for this organization, it had to be a big bang. And what would we do with the non-fitment areas? There are processes in the company where the ERP will not fit. There are processes in the company where the ERP is not addressed at all. It's not addressed. What do we do with that? Inspection was one area. Shutdown in the refining plant was another area. ERP did not address it. So what do we do? So for non-fitment areas, we proposed a strategy of alternative software integration. And last, of course, the typical feasibility of cost, time, and expected customer satisfaction. We said, if you get all this again, let's go to ERP. Otherwise, let's go back and upgrade our legacy systems. And again, here the organization said, this is good. Okay, so how did we take charge? The first thing we did was to build the project team. And we went to top management and asked for the heroes. We said we are not going to take people who are in their twilight years, who you think is not doing anything there, but you're keeping him for keep's sake. We want the best and the brightest from your company, and we knew who the stars were. We knew who the best performers were. We knew where the intelligence was lying, and we said we want them. And top management said, no. How could I give you this guy? What will I do after that? And the only question we posed to him was, if this guy resigns today and comes back after 18 months, will you take it? And in most cases, they said, yeah, we'll take it. So that's exactly what he should do now. And he'll come back with a much more enhanced experience. We got the professional heroes. And we gave him the freedom to decide. He said, go ahead and do what you want. You always wanted to do with this organization. You got the freedom. And we got the people inside. We asked them to select the team to work on the integration. We picked up a few business analysts cutting across the company. It could be from human resources, it could be from IT, it could be from quality. And we asked them to look at change, whether a process change happens or an organization change happens. And finally, we hired the ERP experts. And the ERP experts were on permanent hire, and the balance came out of a time and materials. So outsourcing is not done as well. But with this team, what we could do is we could front face the business very confidently, because the heroes established the trust. Line management always thought, my guy is there. He's going to take care of me. There was transparency, because the change management team was there to document the change, demonstrate it objectively. And there was clear demonstration whenever we made a process change. So every part of the project, we could go in confidently to business and say, this is how the process is going to work. And if it works this way, this is the benefit we will reach. That's how the project team took charge. Planning the project and control it. Most ERP projects list down the modules. And they will say, you have to do all of the standard things in each module to get the whole ERP in place. We look at it completely different. The WBS, or the work breakdown structure of this project, was all about business processes in scope. It was supported by 3 independent plans. One was the integration plan. The other was the change plan. The integration is the simple process design, the configuration, and the integration points. But the change plan was even more tougher, because you got to identify where the process changes were going to happen, and consequently, where is the organization change going to happen. And we had the risk management plan, which would track resistance, roadblocks, for the implementation. And that is the project plan. Now, if you see this project, most of the time people will think that you're going to monitor the project. But the project plan was good, because the integration plan was pretty tight. The WBS was pretty tight. What we had to monitor on a fortnightly basis, which went on a weekly basis, and in fact towards the last phases of the project, it was on a daily basis, was the risk management. Because you never know where the resistance is going to come, where the roadblocks is going to occur, what's going to impede progress. So we monitored this project through risk management. I can tell you for sure that that is a better way of managing projects. You can manage the whole project by looking at the risks and putting in mitigation steps. How do we manage resistance to change? Obviously, it's a big organization, 65 departments, I told you already. What we did was we categorized the stakeholders. If you take a process, you've got executors of the process, approving or alter, taking one process from this step to the next step. There are approvers based on the delegation of authority of the company, and that had to be embedded in the process. There were players who never even looked at the system, but they were integral part of the process. There were reporters Their only job is to find out if the system will allow them downloading of data so that they can put it in Excel and start juggling it. So we have to look at that. We have to look at normal users who come and take a peek at the system to find some status. And we had outsiders, we had customers, we had vendors who we would integrate to enable the process to work better. All of these guys were the stakeholders for this process. And we did continuous stakeholder analysis, phase-wise, from the beginning to end. Every phase was analyzed. We used different channels to capture their feedback. It could be a town hall meeting like this. And every department used to have a town hall meeting. That was recorded. It was put in the company's portal. We had a FAQ. People will ask questions. And in this particular case, it was SAP. So one guy asked us, is it systems against people? So, FAQs. We put live video recordings. So that people could come back and see that there is a lot of objectivity, logical things which is happening at the process stage. This is not a temporary matter. It's a serious business. And we did it consistently, which means the job of the analyst was to take the change, go and announce it to the user as and when it was designed, get the feedback. And we published the feedback. This is what you said, this is what we have come back at all times to all the stakeholders. So what happened? We went through the phases. In the planning phase, it was to tell the users, please understand what is in scope. In the blueprinting, we created swim lanes. You know, many of the IT projects, they create some complicated flowcharts with some wonderful symbols and nobody will understand what this is all about. We created swim lanes with only one symbol. A block which tells you what is the activity. And the block has got an input, it results in an output. That output becomes an input to the next block. And that's how horizontal processes were managed. Obviously, the roles can come out of this very easily. The roles could come out very easily, the changes could be spotted, and the issues could be thrown up to the users and the feedback. We kept the swim lanes towards the realization phase. That's when the ERP was actually showcased to the users. A new job role was mentioned with the metrics. All the resolutions were resolved. And we also told them how to capture the data for the cutover. And finally, we gave them training. Hey, everybody would expect that you have training in all modules, become an SAP consultant tomorrow. No. We gave them training exactly what is required, what you need to know to perform the business process. Processes can mean that they will have a manual activity, they will have an IT activity, they might have an ERP, input, output, in, out. The entire process was mapped purely from a business point of view. As I already told you, the ERP is only a facilitator for the business process. We gave them transition kits. You know, we made handwritten kits which are pasted in their board so that they could start the system on the day in which it is supposed to go live. Most organizations say the day you go live is actually your day. But we tried our best to come up with a plan to enable them to go smoothly to the next phase of their activity. And that was all about readiness. So in hindsight, how did we plan to go live? I'll go back to my first slide. We did everything to ensure that the process of collaboration, creation, integration, demonstration, communication happened in a project mode, so that when it is ready for change, processes are ready for live action, for a user process. It's good to go, and people know that there are new roles for them to play. The project team moved into support. People who are in the project moved as key users, super users, or support. Some of the project team leaders became the change champions in the new business. The project team is redundant. There's no need for the project team anymore. It's handed over to information technology. So, what are the learnings? can ask me, hey, for a information technology project, you have to do all of this. Not necessary. But for this organization, which had to undergo a complete revamp of processes, you ask me another question. If I do all of this, can I succeed well in any other project? This organization can tell you, don't waste my time. So again, every methodology has to be tweaked for the organization. So what are the learnings from here? First and foremost, we got management commitment. That 60% problem, I told you that this is the problem in the crisis, where we need executive commitment for every change initiative. That's what we attacked first. At every point in time, we got the buy-in. If the buy-in didn't happen, something wrong with the project. We didn't go forward. There was continuous communication, and this was an adaptive project. One of the good things which happened is that there was a great amount of trust and allegiance because of the heroes we had in the team. And the heroes and the followers had a lot of shared interest. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Do you think we could have gained if we had outsourced it to a external consultants? I don't think so. And the organization would undergo this whole process internally, and we figured out that some people had the guts to come out of their jobs to do something good for the organization. Finding your own role. Don't adopt the methodology just for the sake of it. Take that methodology, take a hard look at it and see whether it fits your purpose. Don't ignore feedback. Communication is not about you communicating the change in the proposals to the people. It's about getting feedback. There's strong power of this. Don't pursue change just because it is different, just because you got a new technology. The idea was to bring in better change. And finally, we pushed. We pushed hard. We pushed hard. People not going and saying, hey, your process is wrong. We pushed them to accept the new changes. And that is the learning of doing a process change. Then you can ask me, so what do I do? My organization is like this. My organization is different. What do I do? So you got to look at the organization. I've been telling you that every change project is dependent on the organization. If you think the organization is a machine, take the grinding machine. You keep on doing whatever it does. And at some point, it will reach its depreciable state, you throw it out and bring a new one. If your organization is a machine, you don't have to manage change. You got to manage instructions. Just get the guys, follow orders. If you think they're going to introduce a change, tell them this is how you should do it. You will get that. Typically, this is what happens to a small, owner-driven, promoter-driven organizations. But if your organization is a political system, hey, a lot of people have politics in their organization. If you think your organization doesn't have politics, it's only wrong. Organizations have political systems. People influence top management. People can go and say, this is good for the company. Management will listen to you. In that case, you've got to manage this power and coalition. But it's a bouncing ball. Because you know, the guy who wants to bust it will use the same circle of influence. A hostile guy and the dissolution guy will also use the same power. So it becomes difficult enough. Organizations is used as a political system. But most organizations are like our there are finders, people who find new ways of doing things. There are minders, people who manage people. And there are grinders, who do things repeatedly, wonderfully well. There are hunters who go and bring business to people. There are farmers, given the organization, they reap harvest, crop after crop. And there are winners and there are losers. So, in this kind of an environment, there is no other way but you need to manage change. Because we're going to bring all these different living beings in the organization together. common cause, for a common purpose. And that's where you manage change. But most organizations is a mix of a political system and an organization. And therefore, you've got to do both. And many times, it is very sensitive. You've got to use power, you've got to use political influence, and you also have to use a good project management methodology, crisis management, and people management. But some organizations are in a state of flux and transformation, where everybody in the organization is thinking of a breakthrough product or a breakthrough service. And in that case, that organization is in a flux, meaning it's consistently doing that. But actually, you're not managing change there. You're actually managing innovation. And that essentially is the difference in managing change. In hindsight, it's not the critic who counts. It's not about how we stumbled. It's not about how it could have been better. It's about you being in the arena. It's when you strive valiantly, err but not give up. It's about your enthusiasm, devotion for a cause. It's about the triumph of achievement. It's about failing while daring great. Change is not about victory or defeat. Change is about giving all the best you can, giving a good shot. Thank you all for this wonderful opportunity. Did I finish on time?
Oh, yes.
Good. I'm willing to answer